Another shorter episode today, unfortunately, but hopefully that means that the next 3 episodes will be a bit longer, or at the very least, the finale will be 20 minutes or more. But even with this shorter episode, we still got some interesting things happening, along with a decent setup for what is going to be the finale of Argus that we've all been expecting coming in the next 3 episodes. So, spoiler warning for those who haven't seen episode 10 just yet. I'm not going to be showing the episode or clips from it in this video, simply images from the episode and analyses based on that. I'll leave a link in the description to Rooster Teeth First so you can go support the series that we all love. Now, the episode starts off at the military base. Weiss has apparently come to her senses and decided to return to Atlas, which Cordovin is extremely happy about, and we see her walking along with Weiss and Weiss's suitcase, along with Saffron and her child, which no idea why they were let into the military base. They have no association with it other than terracotta, so I don't really understand it. And we also see the 2 guards that we had previously seen at the gate who walk very uniquely, to say the least, and are very excited about their jobs. Now, they are actually just pretty kind people, to be honest, and very passionate about their military service, about their country, and about what they are doing. They are kindly offering to help Weiss take her suitcase, but she's very insistent not to let them do that. Cordovin getting a little bit suspicious. We find out why Saffron and her child are there. They have a plan, and apparently, even though this baby can't speak the English language yet, can definitely understand enough to cry at the mother's command. And not only cry, but in this case let out a banshee howl that sends out literal shockwaves. Now, I'm guessing this was just an added effect to show that the baby's scream was that loud, or perhaps the baby has already awakened its semblance at that young age that just sends out shockwaves when it screams. Doubt that's the case, but still it seemed mildly overdramatic, as I guess babies can be. But, of course, the guards being, nice and kind, they put Weiss's suitcase down and go to the baby and try to console the baby, at which point Weiss runs onto the ship with her suitcase and Cordovin kind of pays it no mind. And of course, Weiss obviously doesn't want to go back to Atlas, so what would she pack? Well, we find out exactly what she packed. Now, what about is the right size of that suitcase? Is there someone we know that could fit in there? The Grim Reaper, perhaps? So, yeah, Maria is actually stowed away in the suitcase, and Weiss has a little intercom in her ear communicating with RWBY, and of course, they are going along with Jean's plan, and have Saffron and their child working along with them. So, the plan is generally this. Weiss gets on the ship with Maria, waits until she gets out of cell phone signal range, at which point she will be out of radar range as well. They take control of the ship. Blake and Yang, who are on their way to the radio tower, in communication with Terracotta, who's also helping them, telling Blake exactly what to disable with the radio tower to disable the radar. And then Weiss will come back into signal range, pick everyone up, and then they will merrily make their way to Atlas. Very simple plan, and actually would work quite perfectly. Except there's some serious flaws with it, in my opinion. But first, the question is, how exactly did they get Terracotta and Saffron to help? I'm guessing they didn't tell them everything that's happening, the danger of the world, Salem existing, the relics, the gods, everything of that sort. But they must have at least told them enough to convince them to help, because Terracotta's risking her job. She's saying, this conversation never happened, I didn't tell you anything, don't involve me past this point. So why is she putting herself at risk? Of course, Jean's family and it's a mission and everything, but she's going against the military, her job, her livelihood. I'm interested to know what exactly they were told, or what extent they were told, what would convince them to do that. But anyways, Weiss does get out of signal range. Her and Maria team up, take out the guards, throw them off, and, gives them a parachute and everything, although they are still screaming traitor on the way down, and they take control of the ship. At this point, however, things start to go awry, and this is where a little bit of added thinking, I believe in my part, I believe would have helped them. They take control of the ship and pretty much instantly turn it around, and they see that Blake hasn't had the radar down, so they're still on radar, and they can't really get in contact with Blake. So Yang obviously goes in to help Blake, and we don't actually see Yang get there in this episode. It's going to happen probably at the beginning of the next one, but Crow starts blaming himself. Now that everything's going wrong, he's saying, damn it, this is all my fault. Obviously blaming it on his semblance, and RWBY flat out tells him, don't blame yourself. You are not our responsibility. We would have come here anyways, because when they first set out, Crow wasn't even with them. RWBY, Jean, Ren, and Nora set out on their own, and Crow was just kind of watching over them as the guardian, well, Crow, I guess, but they went out on their own anyways. They would have made it to Haven anyways. They would have fought anyways, and whether they, well, they wouldn't have known about the relic at that point, but with everyone being there and attacking Haven, it would have happened. So Crow's definitely not responsible, and hopefully that's a wake-up call saying that, you know, you're not our responsibility. We are going to do things anyways. We could use Crow Bronwyn, though. And hopefully that was enough to snap him out of it and get him back on the right track. Though that seems like the second or third time he's been told this, but hey, we can still have hope. But enough about that. As Weiss comes back into Single Rage, of course, Cordovin and her team, or her military personnel, realize this, contact the ship, and Maria, although using the right lingo apparently, obviously gives it away that the ship is now under their control, or not under Atlas's military control, at least. And they're just like, yeah, we know our pilots aren't elderly women, so land immediately or we're going to consider you hostile. And then Maria decides to antagonize Cordovin even more by breaking out the cashews. Why do they always make it that often old lady in anime and RWBY are always just a little bit off their rocker? Because, and I'm not talking about Maria in this case, because Cordovin's response to Maria eating cashews and hijacking a ship, obviously Maria doesn't intend to overthrow the military or anything of this sort, but Cordovin's response is simply, let's get out the giant mech. Yeah, the giant mountain that we see over top of the military base is not a mountain at all. It's not that the military base is built into that mountain as it appears, but no, that mountain is simply just a giant hangar for a giant mech. And the mech apparently has different cartridges that utilize dust, and it fires an electrical blast at the plane, which it seems to just skim, I guess, as it does send an electrical current through the plane, but doesn't deactivate it. Also, by the way, Maria is piloting this ship, the old blind woman, and she plugged her eyes into the digital array that the ship has, so she can see, essentially, or I guess sense everything that the ship has, or sense the surroundings of the ship, see the surroundings of the ship, and is able to pilot it. So that's actually pretty interesting. Her Atlas Tech eyes can work with other Atlas technology. Pretty convenient, and it makes me wonder why that exactly was built in. But anyways, back to the giant mech. RWBY sees it coming and says, okay, Weiss, we are going to need you on the ground to deal with this giant thing. So what I'm kind of hoping, after hearing this, is Weiss is going to summon her giant knight, and we're going to see essentially a giant monster battle between the mech, piloted by the insane Cordovin, and Weiss's white knight. That would be an interesting fight. However, I think if Weiss's knight summoned the sword, that could cut it right in half, or the electrical beam could do some decent damage to the knight, depending on how strong its sword is and if it's able to resist that. So we'll see, but I'm kind of hoping for that to happen. And for the finale of the episode, we cut to Blake and find out exactly what's happening with her. She's running scared. From what? Well, we kind of have had hints about this the entire season, or the entire volume so far. She's running from Adam, who's finally tracked her down, who has been waiting for her to separate from her friends and go off on her own. Doesn't matter to Adam that it's the middle of a crucial plan where that would turn the entire military against them, but hey, he got his chance, so he took it. And we see that Adam is no longer wearing his mask, but he does have a blindfold over his eyes, which I find odd. It's not like there's eye holes or anything cut in them, so it makes me wonder, I don't want to think that Adam's blind. I don't think he is blind. But it seems he's either able to see through that fabric, or is able to fight by sensing the world around him, Daredevil-esque style, maybe. I don't know. That's really interesting to see, and he obviously starts telling Blake that he blames her for ruining his life, that he has such anger at her for throwing away the memories that they had, how she's moved past it and everything. Adam is still stuck in the past. And he finishes off by saying that he let her go once. He never will again. He won't make that mistake again. And then it fades out for what's going to happen in the next episode, which we, as I mentioned, we have all known which is coming. The confrontation between Adam, Blake, and Yang. And especially by Adam saying that he will never let her go again means that he is going to do whatever it takes to take down Blake. Or in this case, be taken down himself. I have a feeling that this is going to be a volume where someone else, a character that we have known for quite a while, is going to die, and that being Adam Toros. I don't know how exactly it's going to happen. Probably Blake and Yang teaming up against him, or what the final blow is actually going to be, whether he's going to end up taking his own life, whether something is going to happen, or whether it's going to be an accident or some necessity, but that's going to lead to something else that Blake and Yang are going to have to deal with for the first time. The burden of having to take a life, especially for Blake, it's Adam, someone that she has loved at one point, someone who loved her, and someone who she has trusted and fought alongside for many years, at least I think it was many years, and, you know, yes, there's been years in between that point, but it's someone who has had a significant part of her past. Having to deal with him being killed right in front of her is going to be something that they are going to have to deal with next volume, and Blake and Yang still have things that they need to work out. So that, added onto it, could either bring them closer by sharing this experience and meaning like, okay, we have to support each other, we have to pull each other through this, or it could also tear them apart, depending on who ends up dealing the death blow or how exactly it ends up happening. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen with that. But I don't think Adam Toros is going to survive as much as I want him to, because aesthetically, the way he fights, the way his semblance is, and the way his character is just made is fantastic and is an incredible part of this series. I don't think he's gonna survive. And the next thing I want to talk about is this giant mech that the Argus base has. Likely their biggest weapon, but it just seems very inefficient on its surface. Like, we've seen that it has one weapon so far, the giant cannon in its right arm, and I'd hope that for something of that size, it would have more than just that one weapon. Because if it only has that one weapon, extremely inefficient. But even if it has multiple weapons, it being a humanoid shape doesn't seem very efficient. Yeah, it's all nice to see in Gundam and other anime, and in the Atlas, or in the RWBY world, it makes sense to have personnel units that are, you know, human-sized and human-shaped, able to wield guns and other weapons, things like that, because when it's man-to-man combat, foot soldiers type thing, yeah, send in the machines to do it so the people don't have to. But when it's a giant mech-type robot, it seems very inefficient. You could take all that money and effort put into that giant unit, because they only have the one, and put it into tanks or ships, or even just the cannon technology and put it onto ships that they already have, or mobile units that they already have. It seems more efficient to do it that way. I'm no military tactician, but it just seems straightforward to me, especially considering RWBY has a plan to take it down utilizing Weiss. So if a small group of people are able to take out this giant mechanism, this giant mech that is pretty much the main defense, or at least what it seems, of the Argus base, that seems very inefficient. Not to mention, Cordovin's probably going to lose her job, and the base is going to be undefended. We also have Cinder and Neo eventually going to arrive at Argus. They are targeting RWBY, along with what I'm guessing, or who I'm guessing is going to be coming, Hazel. He knew where Jean and RWBY and everyone else was headed before Cinder even did. A week beforehand, so he's had plenty of time to prepare and plan an attack. I'm guessing we're going to see him come to Argus, because we haven't seen him at all this volume so far, and of course, Cinder and Neo are going to show up as well. Hopefully Roman Torchwick as well, but, you know, that's just my own personal theory, but we'll have to see what ends up happening with that. Anyways, this entire mech ordeal could have been completely avoided. As I mentioned before, their plan had a couple of flaws. One major flaw in particular. When Weiss and Maria hijacked the ship, they turned it around immediately, because they had no way to contact anyone to see if the radar was actually down. Now, we know from when RWBY and everyone else arrived at Argus that Jean had been constantly calling them, so assumably, very soon after they got into cell signal range, that's when Jean had called them. So when Jean called them, they were pretty close to Argus itself. We saw they just went over one ridge and they were a certain distance away. They could still see it clearly. So presumably the ship would just be that same distance out to the ocean away. Still able to see land, still able to see Argus. So it would seem pretty logical, at least, that they would keep the ship outside of the radar range, outside of the cell signal range, and wait for some sort of signal from land that the radar is actually down. Perhaps just having Nora fire off one of her grenade launcher shots, even out into the water, and just have it go boom and see that giant splash. Oh, there's the signal, then they bring it back in. Giant mech fight avoided, military noticing anything is wrong, completely avoided until the soldiers get back. By that point, they'd already be well on their way to Atlas. The plan could have been thought out a little bit more, I think, in my opinion. Sure, the military could have seen the shot from Nora's grenade launcher and blasting out into the water, but I don't think so. They already arranged a place for the ship to pick everyone up that was already hidden by trees, and the military wouldn't see their ship fly over there, so assuming that they could kind of fly it around the radar so that they would be in that area, the military base was out of sight. So if Nora fired off a rocket blast and it just went into the water, went kersploosh, military would have no idea, everyone would be able to see it, they'd be able to go over, so if anything went wrong, all they would have to do is just circle outside the radar and wait. Because you never know. Things can always go wrong. You want to have backup plans, and it seems like that would have worked a lot better. Maybe there were other things involved. Maybe we'll find out later episodes. But it just seems odd to me, at least, that they didn't put that in. But that's pretty much all I wanted to say about this episode. It was fairly short, you know, put their plan into action, didn't quite work. The mech showed up, Adam showed up, and that's pretty much the episode. So we'll see what ends up happening in the next couple episodes, how they're going to take down the mech, what's going to happen in the confrontation between Blake, Yang, and Adam, as well as within the next 3 episodes, I think that's when we're going to see Emerald and Mercury leave Salem. So there's a lot to look forward to. Cinder, Neo, possibly Hazel showing up, hopefully Roman Torchwick as well, but we'll end up having to see what happens in the next episodes. Let me know down in the comments below what you guys think about this episode. I know we all want them to be a little bit longer, but I guess the animation team can only handle so much, which does make sense, but hopefully the next ones are longer. So let me know what you guys think about this episode, what you expect to come in the next 3 episodes. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next video.